The number one question I get every single day is this. If XRP is the future of global payments, why is the regulatory process moving this slowly? That's the wrong question. And the answer to the right question changes everything. The right question is, who benefits most from the delay? Because this week, one organization handed us the answer in writing. The American Bankers Association, the same lobby that has spent 18 months demanding that crypto companies comply with bank-level regulation, just wrote a formal letter asking regulators to block the application of a crypto company that tried to comply with bank-level regulation. That is not a mistake. That is a confession. And today, we decode exactly what was confessed, what it means for the Clarity Act, and what it means for XRP. Welcome back to Crypto Signals. I don't trade hype. I trade structure. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the most important regulatory contradiction of 2026. The ABA's documented strategy against crypto bank charters, the SEC-CFTC agreement that eliminates the biggest institutional delay, and the White House signal that confirms which side the executive branch has chosen. Let's get into it. Let's start with the hard truth. Most of the market is staring at XRP's price chart. The institutions are staring at the regulatory docket. And right now, those two audiences are reading completely different stories. Here is the mechanism most people are missing. The American Bankers Association has operated on one public argument for the last 18 months. If a crypto company wants to offer bank-like products, stable coins, custody, payments infrastructure, it needs to comply with bank-level regulation. That sounds principled. It sounds like a fair standard. Ripple took that argument seriously. Ripple applied for a national bank charter through the office of the comptroller of the currency. Not a workaround, not a state-level sandbox. A full national bank charter, the precise regulatory pathway that the ABA's own standard requires. The ABA's response was to write a formal letter to the OCC requesting that regulators pause and delay approval of Ripple's application, along with applications from Circle and Coinbase, until Congress finishes implementing crypto rules. Think about what that sequence is. Comply with bank rules. Apply for the charter that makes compliance possible. Watch the organization that demanded compliance ask regulators to block the application. That is not a policy position. That is a documented competitive defense. And here is exactly where the data makes that visible. MasterCard currently runs a crypto rewards program that allows partners, including Gemini, to offer up to 4% back in crypto on everyday spending. MasterCard offers 1 to 3% crypto rewards on all purchases. These programs run through fully regulated banking partners on traditional payment rails. The consumer-facing mechanics are functionally equivalent to the stable coin yield the ABA is lobbying Congress to ban. Consumers accumulating crypto-denominated returns on their spending activity. The ABA has published zero opposition to MasterCard's program. No letters, no congressional testimony, no deposit flight warning. The same 4% return structure is acceptable when it flows through MasterCard's incumbent rails and unacceptable when it flows through crypto-native stablecoin infrastructure. One explanation covers that asymmetry completely. This has never been about depositor protection. It has always been about protecting the intermediary layer that incumbent banking fee revenue depends on. That is the foundation. Now let's put the math against it. Here is the math the retail crowd is not running. And once you run it, the ABA's position becomes structurally indefensible, not just politically, but fiscally. The current U.S. stablecoin market sits at approximately $300 billion. The ABA is modeling catastrophic deposit flight on the projection that this market reaches $3 trillion by 2030. That is a 10x expansion over 4 years. Here is what makes that number interesting. That projection did not come from a crypto advocacy group. It came from Treasury Secretary Bessent. The United States Treasury, the institution that manages the national debt, is not just forecasting this growth. It is supporting it. Ask yourself why. Stablecoin issuers, to maintain their dollar peg, are required by design to hold reserves in U.S. Treasury instruments. A $3 trillion stablecoin market means $3 trillion in mandatory purchases of U.S. government debt from a buyer class that did not exist 5 years ago. Let that sink in. The U.S. Treasury needs buyers for its bonds to finance ongoing deficit spending. Stablecoin issuers are required by their own architecture to be those buyers. The ABA is lobbying against the regulatory framework that would enable the instrument the U.S. Treasury needs to fund its own obligations. That is the arithmetic that makes the ABA's position politically unsustainable at the executive branch level. Now run the XRP-specific math inside that framework. Relust, Ripple's institutional stable coin, is dollar-pegged, backed by U.S. Treasury instruments, and custodied through BNY Mellon. Every dollar flowing into Relust is a dollar purchasing U.S. government debt. Every ODL corridor that settles an XRP and touches Relust reinforces the Treasury demand chain. The cross-border payments market moves approximately $150 trillion annually. Daily Forex volume runs $7.5 trillion. The Nostra Vostro system has roughly $27 trillion locked in pre-funded accounts that exist purely to manage settlement lag, capital that earns nothing and serves only as a buffer for slow infrastructure. Even capturing a single-digit percentage of that locked capital as free liquidity through XRP-based settlement represents a number that the current XRP market structure cannot price efficiently at today's levels. This isn't a prediction. It's a design requirement. The network is not built to move $27 trillion at a $2 token. The math closes the case before the price moves. While the ABA is writing letters, the institutions are building positions. And the signal chain right now is the clearest it has been in this entire cycle. This week, SEC Chairman Atkins and CFTC Chairman Pham signed a memorandum of understanding, formal coordination between both agencies, shared information protocols, joint product review frameworks, a substituted compliance pathway that allows products to satisfy both agencies' requirements through a single approval process. The strategic significance of this for institutional capital is precise, and it is not being explained the way it should be. In every previous regulatory clarity event in this space, the gap between legislative passage and institutional activation was measured in months, not days. Compliance teams at major financial institutions were waiting for the agencies to operationalize the new framework before committing capital. The SEC and CFTC were historically in jurisdictional competition over crypto asset classification. That turf war created ambiguity that compliance teams could not navigate. The MOU eliminates that ambiguity before the Clarity Act passes. When the Clarity Act reaches the president's desk and the summer 2026 legislative window is confirmed, both agencies will already have joint review protocols and coordinated compliance pathways operational. The institutional green light activates on the day of passage, not 6 months after it. For the $3 to $5 trillion in institutional capital that has been building compliance infrastructure during the regulatory wait-and-see period, Bank of America's 4% crypto allocation recommendation, Franklin Templeton's universal liquidity layer positioning, ETF inflow data showing consecutive record weeks. That timing compression is the difference between a gradual inflow and a simultaneous activation event. Ask yourself this. Does a firm like Franklin Templeton position into infrastructure assets without absolute legal certainty? They don't speculate. They don't gamble. They build positions in the quiet before the signal is obvious to the crowd. The quiet is ending. The MOU is the proof. The institutional architecture was not built for someday. It was built for the legislative window that is now on the calendar. Here is the specific forward calendar that everything we have decoded today is building toward. Genius Act, done. The stablecoin regulatory framework is law. Relust's compliance pathway is confirmed. The foundational architecture that powers ODL corridors and institutional XRP settlement is legally operational today. OCC National Bank Charter, active docket. Ripple's application is on record. The ABA's delay letter is on record. The White House's documented opposition to banking lobby interference with crypto regulatory processes is on record. The OCC evaluates applications on documented criteria, not on incumbent lobbying timelines. Clarity Act, summer 2026 legislative window. The SEC-CFTC MOU is the operational preparation. Both agencies are already coordinating. The institutional capital waiting behind this gate is documented. The gate has a date now. White House positioning confirmed. Patrick Wick publicly stated this week that stablecoin yields have existed for years and the deposit flight the ABA is warning about has not materialized. That is not a diplomatic statement. That is the executive branch telling you which side it has chosen. These are not separate events. They are a single chain. Each link that closes makes the next link load-bearing. The Genius Act validates Relust. The MOU validates institutional deployment timing. The Clarity Act opens the institutional gate. The OCC charter gives Ripple direct bank access on the other side of it. The chain is visible. And once you see the chain, the lobbying noise becomes irrelevant. Here is the scarcity argument that the market is not pricing correctly. Exchange reserves for XRP are at multi-year lows. On-chain data from CryptoQuant shows continued exchange drain throughout Q1 2026. The tokens are not sitting on platforms waiting to be sold. They are moving into custody infrastructure, the same infrastructure that institutional settlement requires. The liquid float available for the institutional activation event that the Clarity Act triggers is smaller than the retail narrative accounts for. 100 billion token fixed supply, approximately 55 to 57 billion in circulation. A significant fraction of that locked in escrow with monthly releases that are predominantly relocked. Exchange reserves at lows. And a $3 trillion stablecoin market coming that requires XRP's settlement layer to function at scale. The window where you can position ahead of the institutional signal is not permanently open. The MOU closed one gate. The Clarity Act closes the next. And after that, the only participants left are those chasing a move that the patient already own. Let me leave you with the contradiction that closes this case. The American Bankers Association told crypto companies to comply with bank rules. Ripple applied for a national bank charter to comply with bank rules. The ABA wrote letters asking regulators to block that application. The ABA warned stablecoin yields would trigger deposit flight. Patrick Wick said deposit flight has not materialized despite years of stablecoin yields. The ABA said nothing about MasterCard's 4% crypto rewards running through traditional rails. One organization, 3 documented contradictions. One consistent through line, blocking decentralized infrastructure from the regulatory access that would make it a legitimate competitor. The White House has chosen a side. The Treasury's fiscal arithmetic requires stablecoin growth. The SEC and CFTC have ended their turf war. The Clarity Act summer window is confirmed. And Ripple's bank charter application is still on the OCC's active docket. Price is a distraction. Regulatory architecture is the reality. And the math, when you follow it through the full fiscal and legislative chain, does not lie. The hand has been shown. Now you know what game is being played. Comment clarity below if you made it to the end. The ones who understand the structure don't need to watch the price. In a market fueled by emotion and noise, we thrive on data and composure. Stay patient. Stay rational. I am Crypto Signals. And as we always do, we don't wait for the future. We plan for it.